Want to talk about a tale of two academics, and the interesting thing here is they both happen to be associated with the same institution, Cambridge University. So one is Dr. Priyamvada Gopal, the other is Dr. I think he has a doctorate, David Starkey, the prominent historian. So if you're following this story, you'll know that Starkey is in hot water because he was talking to. I'll just get the reference here. Speaking about this from the London Times by Mark Bridge, speaking about the Black Lives Matter movement to Darren Grimes, a political commentator and activist, Starkey, an honorary fellow of Fitzwilliam College, Cambridge, said slavery was not genocide. Otherwise, and this is verbatim, otherwise there wouldn't be so many damn blacks in Africa or in Britain, would there? An awful lot of them survived. Now, unquestionably, that's inflammatory. No question about it. The report continues. His comments came after he was asked what he would do, what he would say to Black Lives Matter protesters seeking to decolonize the education curriculum. He said, "You cannot decolonize the curriculum because you, Black Lives Matter, are wholly and entirely a product of white colonization. You're not culturally black Africans. You would die in seconds if you were dumped back in black Africa because you wouldn't know how to cope." Footage of the damn blacks comment prompted anger online. Sajid Javid, the former Home Secretary, wrote on Twitter, "We're the most successful multiracial democracy in the world and have much to be proud of. David Starkey's racist comments are a reminder of the appalling views that still exist." Starkey, 75, is best known for his books about Tudors. I've got one of them, The Six Wives, about Henry VIII's Six Wives. He was awarded a CBE in 2007 to services to history. He has caught criticism before over comments including the whites have become black after the riots in London in August 2011. He was talking about young white rioters, chavs as he put it, becoming black. And the report continues. Nicholas Guett, a reader in North American history at the University of Cambridge and a fellow of Jesus College, tweeted yesterday, "I'm ashamed of our connections with David Starkey and urged the university and Fitzwilliam College to cut all ties with him." And as I understand it, he's already been sacked from his position as an honorary fellow. Um, the Society of Antiquaries of London, of which Starkey has been a member since 1994, said that it deplored his comments, which illustrated the need for the society to modify its procedures in dealing with behaviour contrary to its values. It said that it was in the middle of such reforms. Um, okay, so that's David Starkey, and I'll come back to his comments in a second. But the other academic, born in Delhi, Dr. Priyamvada Gopal, last week also caused controversy by saying that we need to cancel white people as a way of, as she saw, dealing with structural racism. And she claimed she was making an analogy. Her supporters claimed that it was actually confronting identity politics. I don't accept that because if that was the case, then she would be saying there's no black people, there's no brown people. She was saying we need to cancel white people. So she was specifically attacking white identity politics, which she sees as part of white structural racism. Regardless, whatever she meant, talking about cancelling white people is clearly an inflammatory thing to say, and it did cause a lot of anger. But here's the difference. Starkey gets routinely criticised, condemned, and now, as I understand it, he's lost his position at Cambridge University. Dr. Gopal is not only defended and excused, and she keeps her position despite a petition to get her sacked, she is actually praised. Praised as an enlightened voice, a brown woman speaking her mind. So, this to me is just striking. It's clearly another example of double standards at play, where you get a white person who's making an inflammatory comment regarding race, gets totally all the heat that comes with that. You get a minority person who does it, and they basically get away with it. Now, bear in mind, this is both Cambridge University, so to me, that is absolutely striking. To be clear, I'm not defending Starkey's comments. I think a historian of his prestige, even someone who's known for being politically incorrect, it was a pretty sloppy statement to make. And yes, it was racist, saying there's too many damn blacks. Whatever way you gloss that over, it's pretty racist, right? Um, Whatever he meant by it, Starkey should have known better. So I'm not overly sympathetic to him. I do think he's got an arrogant streak, and I do think that there's a difference between being politically incorrect and just being crass and flippant for the sake of it. But Dr. Gopal, not only has she shown no remorse, she then plays the victim because there was a backlash. Now, I'm sure Starkey is being bombarded with hateful messages as well by Black Lives Matter activists calling him a Nazi and all the rest of it. You know, if someone makes a controversial statement, they're going to get some sort of backlash. But in one of these cases, we see someone lose their position. In the other case, we see the person keep their position. Surely Cambridge as an institution should have some consistent standards. So either they're both sacked, or they both lose their positions, or neither of them do. I think the double standards are so glaringly obvious, except for those who don't want to see them. You know, so if those people who are making excuses for Gopal but condemning Starkey are hypocrites. They're not consistent. If you're going to make excuses for some kinds of racism whilst condemning other kinds, that's, you're not being consistent. Um, so my pitch here is not that, oh, it's outrageous that Starkey's been sacked. I think he should have known better. Whether it should have been sacked or not, I'm not sure. Is that excessive? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. He certainly shouldn't have said it. I don't know if he's made a response. I haven't seen any reports if he's responded to this, if he's apologised or anything like that. Starkey doesn't strike me as the sort of man who would apologise. He does have an arrogant streak of something I think, it's one adjective that can be fairly associated with David Starkey. Nevertheless, he is one of our most prestigious historians, and he should have known better. There's no question about it. But why does Dr. Gopal get a free pass? She may not be quite as prominent as Starkey, but she is a senior lecturer, as I understand it, in the English department, and she's being praised. So these woke Cambridge students who are okay with some kinds of racism, but outraged by another. Now let's actually talk about Starkey's comment itself. He said that slavery wasn't genocide because black people survived. Well, that criteria is contentious because there were Jews who survived the Holocaust, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a genocide. Um, there were Cambodians who survived the killing fields, but that doesn't mean that wasn't genocide. There were Rwandans who survived Rwanda's killing fields. It doesn't mean that wasn't genocide. So I think that criteria is a bit of a weak criteria. But even if Starkey was talking in technical terms, I think he could have said it in a less inflammatory way. Now, maybe it's the fact that he was speaking to this Brexiteer. I don't know anything about the guy, Darren Grimes. I don't know who he is. Maybe Starkey kind of thought, oh, well, I'm in a sort of safe space, so to speak, here, or a sort of area where, I can say these things. This isn't an audience of left wing students. This is a right wing activist. Nevertheless, it was public, and you know, I think Starkey could do damage limitation if he made some sort of apology. Or I am a believer though, if someone's not sincerely sorry, then they shouldn't apologize. So if he thinks he was right, then he thinks he was right. But then people will see him as a racist, and he can't complain about that because saying there's too many damn blacks, whatever way you look at it, that is inflammatory. But I consider the comment cancel all white people to be just as inflammatory. As far as I'm concerned, Dr. Gopal is a racist. Until she proves otherwise, that's how I will see her. And when these things are exposed, I hear white liberals or I'll rephrase that, white woke activists will say things like, I'm white and I'm defending her, like that proves something. But white woke activists are fully immersed in the white guilt culture. So the fact that you get white people defending minority racists who are being racist towards white people doesn't really prove anything. Um, but yeah, it's a tale of two academics, and I feel so long as these sort of double standards are seen, it's just going to lead to a lot of polarization and resentment. People are going to think, well, there's one rule for white people and another rule for everyone else. It should be consistent, simple as that. So if Starkey's losing his position, why shouldn't Dr. Gopal? Even though there's a petition to that effect. And I'm aware that she's had some trolls have said unsavoury things to her. But now what's happening is the likes of the Guardian and the Independent, and even some of the right wing publications, are focusing on the backlash. I.e., they're focusing on the fact some people have made counter racist statements. They've kind of countered her bigotry with bigotry of their own. That's really unfortunate, and we see it every time. That's like that woman Clara Genova when she came out with her threats to stab people who said all lives matter. Where was the focus? Was it on the fact that she had threatened to stab political opponents, whatever way she wants to call it, like a joke? That's what she threatened to do. Was that the focus? No. The focus was on the fact that some idiots decided to troll her with ostensibly rape threats and violent threats, which is, it's totally wrong. Totally wrong. But I don't think that should be the focus. I think the focus should be on she made these comments, which were very inflammatory and threatening, by the way, and she also happened to get this backlash. So this is just an indicator of where we are at with identity politics. Very sad. There is not consistent standards applied. The likes of Cambridge University, um, I don't think they'll ever fully hold black or brown races to account. At best, they might give them a mild rebuke. But they're basically saying with this action that if you're a white racist or you're white and you make a racist statement, we'll come down on you like a ton of bricks. And if you're brown or black and you do it, oh well, then you're a free thinker, you're enlightened, you're radical, you're woke. The double standards stink, and I think they need to be much more debated.